Essentially what I wanted to do is implement like a full like design system that kind of handles the dynamicness of kind of displaying things differently based off of the surface it's on. I kind of built something like that in the legacy design system, so I kind of wanted to implement similar things here. So what I did is I just literally threw every component on uh, in a Swift, I'm sorry, in a Compose preview, and essentially this is all built in the Compose preview, so it's pretty complicated, but it's pretty easy to implement. So this is just a bunch of typographies, a bunch of buttons, a bunch of controls. Like I basically try to throw everything on here. A bunch of this is only a card. There's a bottom view here that we're really not using. I try to quickly switch over this. So I have two goals. Trying to make it so the components kind of dynamically work on top of primary or on top of a color, and also to work in dark mode. So like this definitely does not work well in dark mode. This is just the defaults that are provided by the example when you create the code. So the theme that it creates is, I'm not customizing this really at all. And it kind of just looks like this. So, and as you can see, what's kind of built in is it works decently on, so like this is just one color. This is, wait, let me click back. So this is this one color, and then it just automatically changes. So like there's 3 different surfaces built into Compose. Actually, maybe even more, probably more. But if you look into the main activity, let me see if I can find an example of, look at the typography. So like there's a few different surfaces. So based on the surface, the color of the text or whatever you're using can change. So you can kind of see that's defined in these. So dark and light actually defines it inside of here. And if you look into the implementation, you can see that it pulls white and that kind of stuff of on surface. You're kind of looking at these on colors for text colors and stuff like that. So yeah, and then the buttons here don't really look that great on primary. So that's kind of problematic, but not on primary. This is enabled buttons, and these are all just disabled versions. Same thing up here. This is on primary. Everything down here is disabled versions. Same thing with controls. They don't really look that good on primary. And then also sometimes they don't. I guess they actually work well when it's dark, but still have the problem with on primary. So it's kind of a systematic problem. So I thought that's kind of annoying. So what you can do to solve this is you can either define like maybe 2 different themes. One theme for like just regular views, and then one theme on top of primary. And then every single time you switch to a primary surface, you're going to have to wrap that with a theme, and then have it use different coloring scheme from here. That's kind of how I had the old design system work, but I was like, oh, hopefully there's a better way to do that. So what I had to do to implement something like that is I basically had to implement a hack. The reason why I had to do that is because there's no clear way to identify whether you are on primary. So this is what somebody told me to do on the Slack, is doing something like this. So what this actually does is this is the text color of the element that you're trying to look at. So wherever you use this is on primary, it will try to detect the text color at that current point in time, and detect if that is on primary. But that is problematic because if you define that as white, so the color on primary as white, or like kind of repeat the use of colors inside of dark. Actually, I need to go to dark here. Inside of dark, it actually has some things that default to white. So essentially, these will match up the same rules. So that this logic doesn't really work well. So what I had to do is add a hack to essentially change the primary color from white to like one degree off of one hex number off of white, and essentially set that as a primary query. So what that does is allows this rule to work. So then what we can do is I can implement something. Let me show you what I did. I can implement something like a custom wrapped button. So like that, if you can kind of see the text button's not even visible here, and it's visible here. So what I did is I wrapped the text button with something. I'll show you the code for it in a second. I think this is all I need to do is comment this out, and then comment this out. And then we should be able to run this again. And you should see in the buttons that that essentially it kind of looks better. So what I did is I have in the code here, I detect whether it is on primary, and then I kind of change some colors. So that kind of allows that to work. So that's kind of one hack that I implemented. I want to show you one other hack. I don't know. Are you posting how much time I have left? I can't see it. Is it?
You got like 4 minutes.
4 minutes, okay. So the second hack I wanted to show was this one, okay? So this one is not so much of a hack, but it still uses the on primary. So you can kind of see here, green is just green on all 3 of these. And also when you flip to dark mode, it's green on all 3 of these. Let's say I wanted to choose to make this color instead of green on dark mode, or instead of green on primary, I wanted to make it white on those 2 cases. So what I did is I added another color here. I'm going to comment this one out. I'm going to build this, and I essentially added another color here that allows me to kind of have the dynamicism that I want to build into this without having to throw another theme into this. So it kind of allows me to, the rules here are, if you're on this white, it's going to stay green, but if you're on primary, it's going to change to white. And then if you are on dark mode, it's always going to be white. So if you kind of look at the implementation of this green or white logic, it just kind of, this is light is built in, which is nice, but this is primary is not. So I think this is some flexibility that should be built into the components. So you can kind of just decide, hey, I'm going to have surfaces determine the colors, but my components will just automatically be themed automatically. So that's kind of what I was aiming for, and that's what this demo shows. So any kind of questions on any of that, hopefully you can hear me through all
that. I guess looking at that, if I were to like make a theme, a theme that would have that slight altercation, like to do that hack, I would simply extend the current theme and then tweak that single color. Do you find yourself like do you find this being the only approach to updating, like for instance that last example you were talking about where you needed to update that green value based on the primary color? Do you feel like that's the only approach that you were able to go about, or do you think there's still a way to like say, hey, we have this theme, but we also have an extension of that theme that simply just updates the green value? I guess because my assumption would be that you could just in real time update that theme and then you have the same effect but in a traditional format.
Yeah, the problem with that is how our design system works is so like if you kind of look at how the theme works is there's like on colors. So you can only actually have one color throughout your entire app for text unless you want to have another theme. So what we have in our app is a dark text, and then we have a kind of like a bluish dark text. So if you want to use both of those and have it work universally with dark mode and all that stuff, what you'd have to do is every single time you change the color of your text, you're going to have to wrap it with a theme. So you're going to have to, I can show you, you're literally going to have to, and everywhere in your code, wrap this. Like you're going to have to do what I call the theme. I don't know what I call the theme, but you're literally going to have to wrap every single thing you want to change a color to like this. And I feel like that's kind of ugly to have to do that throughout the code. and ensuring engineers do this throughout the code rather than just like having it automatically work was kind of what I was kind of going for. So the proper way, and now if I was talking to Google, they would say probably wrap everything with a theme. But I feel like that's a little too hacky for me, in my opinion. I mean, it's just like, it's kind of cluttering up your code when you're literally all you want to do is have a color that dynamically changes, but depending on the surface.
Right.
That's what your intention is, but you are forcing everybody to wrap everything with themes, and I thought that was like convoluted.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you could definitely go about both ways. I'm just thinking of like the one-off scenarios, sure, but then you scale into a dozen other scenarios. You know, what would that look like, and how would you manage it without casting like nested themes? But certainly, I agree. Like for one-off scenarios, it's a little aggressive, but interesting. I didn't know you could do that. That is a cool hack, though, for sure. It'd be harder to achieve that in traditional theming.
Yeah, like the existing system I couldn't implement it, and like my purpose there is this is the design system, so everything should be represented in the design system. So like if there's any more edge cases, those should be represented in the design system and be provided for free, hopefully.
Yeah.
And then if you do need to like kind of do hacks for specific pages, hopefully you can push it against that.
Yeah. Well, cool.